The city hadn't changed much. The skyline still cut sharp against the morning sky. The streets still pulsed with the relentless energy of ambition and excess, and the air carried the scent of wealth. Leather interiors, designer perfumes, freshly inked contracts. But for Olivia Carter, stepping onto the bustling pavement of Fifth Avenue, everything felt foreign. 8 years away from New York had done that to her. Once, this city had been her home. Now it felt like a battlefield. She adjusted the lapel of her cashmere coat, the fabric smooth under her fingers, an armor of her own choosing. She had built herself back up, brick by painful brick, in Chicago, far away from the ruins of her past life. No longer the naive young woman who had walked blindly into love. She was now a renowned marketing strategist, sought after by Fortune 500 companies. She had power, influence, and a life she had carved out on her own terms. And yet, standing before the towering glass monolith of Kingston Global, she felt the familiar sting of old wounds. This was more than a business opportunity. This was a reckoning. A tug on her sleeve snapped her back to reality. "Mom, are we going to be late?" Her 7-year-old son, Leo, looked up at her, his bright blue eyes expectant. Olivia's chest tightened. His father's eyes. She smoothed a hand over his dark curls. "No, sweetheart. We're right on time." He nodded, content with the answer, shifting his weight as he hugged his well-worn space encyclopedia against his chest. Leo had been obsessed with space since he could talk, a dreamer in the purest sense. It was the one thing about him that was completely his own, untouched by the past. What he didn't know, what she hadn't yet told him, was that today he was about to walk into the empire of the man who had unknowingly given him life. Nathaniel Kingston, the man who had once held her heart, the man who had shattered it. Taking a breath, Olivia reached for his hand. "Let's go." The lobby of Kingston Global was a cathedral of capitalism, all sleek marble floors and towering glass walls that reflected the world outside in fractured, distorted glimpses. A place meant to impress, to intimidate. Olivia had once walked these halls as an outsider made welcome. Today she walked in as something else entirely. A receptionist barely glanced up as she approached the front desk. "Name?" "Olivia Carter. I have an appointment with Mr. Brooks." The receptionist's fingers skimmed the keyboard before she nodded. 42nd floor. The assistant will meet you at the elevator." A small hand squeezed hers. Olivia looked down at Leo, who was staring around, wide-eyed. "Big place," he murmured. She smiled. "It is." And it belonged to his father. As they stepped into the elevator, the doors sliding shut with a quiet hum, Olivia found herself gripping the railing as the numbers climbed. 42 floors, 8 years of distance. A single moment standing between her and the past she had spent years trying to outrun. When the doors opened, a man in his mid-40s, impeccably dressed in a navy suit, stepped forward with a welcoming smile. "Miss Carter, I'm Elliot Brooks, head of acquisitions. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." She shook his hand firmly. "Likewise." His gaze flicked to Leo, who stood quietly beside her. "And you must be—" "Leo Carter," her son said, offering his hand in a manner far too formal for a 7-year-old. "Nice to meet you." Elliot chuckled, shaking the small hand. "A pleasure, young man." He turned back to Olivia. "We've arranged for Leo to wait in our executive lounge. There's a reading nook, and my assistant has some science documentaries queued up." Leo's eyes lit up. "Space documentaries?" Elliot smiled. "I believe so." Olivia hesitated. Her instinct was always to keep Leo close, but this was business, and she had come here to play her part flawlessly. She knelt down to his level. "I won't be long, sweetheart. Be good, okay?" Leo nodded, already distracted by the promise of intergalactic wonders. As she straightened, Elliot gestured toward the conference room at the end of the hall. "Shall we?" With one last glance at Leo disappearing into the lounge, Olivia followed. Her pulse remained steady. She had trained herself for this, built walls against the past. But as the doors swung open and her eyes locked onto the man at the head of the table, all of that training shattered. Nathaniel Kingston. He had changed in some ways, the threads of silver at his temples, the harder set of his jaw, but in others, he was painfully the same. The power that radiated off of him, the sheer presence that had once drawn her in like gravity itself, and the piercing blue eyes, the same ones her son had inherited. For a split second, she saw nothing in them. Then recognition hit like a lightning strike. His jaw tightened. "What is this?" His voice, smooth as aged whiskey, cut through the air. "What kind of game are you playing?" Elliot frowned, glancing between them. "Sir?" Olivia didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "Mr. Kingston and I have met before." Nathaniel pushed back his chair, rising to his full height, his eyes never leaving hers. "Met before?" he repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "Olivia was my wife." A silence thicker than the Manhattan skyline settled over the room. Elliot paled. I had no idea." Nathaniel cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Everyone, out!" The executives scrambled, collecting their papers and exiting as quickly as decorum allowed. The door shut with a quiet click, leaving only Olivia and Nathaniel alone in the glass-walled room. For the first time in 8 years, they faced each other. His voice dropped, low and lethal. 8 years of silence, and now you walk into my company under false pretenses? She didn't blink. "I didn't lie about anything." His gaze burned into hers, searching, demanding. Then his expression hardened, as though he had reached a verdict. "You have a son." She braced herself. "Yes." His voice was quiet, but there was nothing soft in it. "Is he mine?" Nathaniel's words hung in the air, thick with accusation. Olivia met his stare without flinching, though her pulse roared in her ears. There was no turning back now. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "Leo is your son." For a brief moment his mask slipped. His lips parted slightly, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the edge of the table. Then, just as quickly, the cold, unyielding CEO returned. "You kept my son from me for 8 years." Olivia's heart clenched. "You made sure I had no choice." His jaw tightened. "Explain." She crossed her arms, steeling herself. "You threw me away, Nathaniel. I was cast out with nothing, no money, no home, no way to fight back. I was already pregnant, but you were too busy believing the worst of me to care." Nathaniel's stare was unrelenting, his broad shoulders squared as if bracing for a battle. Olivia had expected anger. She had expected disbelief. What she hadn't expected was the flicker of something else in his gaze, hurt. 8 years, he murmured, his voice a quiet storm. "You were pregnant and you never told me." Olivia's fingers curled into her palm, nails pressing against her skin to ground herself. "Would it have mattered, Nathaniel?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "The night you had your security team escort me out of our home like a stranger, you made it clear I meant nothing to you." His jaw clenched. He stopped himself, exhaling sharply. "You should have told me." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "And what would you have done? Believed me? Given me the benefit of the doubt?" Nathaniel said nothing. The silence was answer enough. She shook her head, feeling the weight of all the years she had survived without him. "You didn't trust me then, and I doubt you trust me now." His eyes darkened, something dangerous flickering beneath the surface. "You had a son, my son, And you decided for both of us that I would never know him. That wasn't your choice to make alone." Olivia's heart pounded, but she refused to let him see her waver. "It was my choice when the man I loved turned his back on me." Nathaniel's fists clenched at his sides. "I thought you betrayed me." "You wanted to believe I did," Olivia countered, "because that was easier than facing the truth." He flinched, barely perceptible, but she caught it. Before he could respond, the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Kingston," the receptionist's voice broke through the tension. "Your 10:30 appointment has arrived." Nathaniel exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair. "Reschedule it." "Yes, sir." The room fell back into silence, thick with unspoken words. Finally, Olivia straightened her posture. "This meeting was about business, Nathaniel. If you can't separate that from your emotions, I'll take my expertise elsewhere." His expression hardened. "You're not walking away this time." She arched a brow. "Are you offering me the job?" A muscle ticked in his jaw. "I need a damn good marketing strategist, and despite everything, I know you're the best." Something inside her twisted. For years she had dreamed of making him regret what he had done. Now, standing here with his offer on the table, she realized regret wasn't enough. "Fine," she said, lifting her chin, "but this is strictly professional." Nathaniel's gaze swept over her, as if committing her to memory. "We'll see about that." Olivia found Leo exactly where she left him, sitting cross-legged in the executive lounge, watching a documentary on planetary orbits. "Hey, kiddo," she said, her voice softer now. "Ready to go?" Leo glanced up, his blue eyes alight with curiosity. "Did you get the job?" She hesitated. "I think so." He grinned. "Cool." As they walked out of Kingston Global, Olivia felt the weight of Nathaniel's presence lingering behind her. The past wasn't done with them yet. And neither, it seemed, was he. The sleek office of Kingston Global was just as Olivia remembered, cold, pristine, and utterly devoid of warmth. As she sat in the high-backed leather chair across from Elliot Brooks, she reminded herself why she was here, for her career, for her independence, and most importantly, for Leo. But none of that changed the fact that Nathaniel Kingston was a threat. Elliot leaned forward, clasping his hands together. "Your work with the Jensen Corporation was impressive, Olivia. Increasing their market share by 22% in less than a year. That's exactly the kind of expertise Kingston Global needs." Olivia allowed herself a small smile. Jensen was about understanding their audience. Every company has a story. How you tell it determines your success. A deep voice cut through the room, rich and commanding. "And you've always been an exceptional storyteller." She didn't have to turn around to know Nathaniel had entered the room. His presence was a force of nature, the kind that altered the air itself. Still, she refused to let him see how much he affected her. Slowly she turned, her expression neutral. "Mr. Kingston," she said smoothly, "I was just discussing the details of the marketing strategy with Mr. Brooks." Nathaniel's gaze flickered to Elliot, who immediately straightened, adjusting his tie. "Thank you, Elliot. I'll take it from here." Elliot hesitated, clearly sensing the tension, but nodded. "Of course. I'll have the contract drafted for your review, Olivia." As the door shut behind him, Olivia was left alone with Nathaniel. "Do you always make your employees this nervous?" she asked, tilting her head. Nathaniel smirked, leaning against the edge of his desk. "Only when they're incompetent. But Elliot is decent. He just doesn't like being in the middle of a battlefield." Her eyes narrowed. "Is that what this is? A battlefield?" Nathaniel's gaze darkened, but he didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the sidebar, pouring himself a drink. "Whiskey?" She raised a brow. 10 in the morning seems a little early." He took a slow sip. "Not today." The silence stretched between them, charged and suffocating. Nathaniel was the first to break it. "You should have told me about Leo." Olivia sighed. "We've already been over this." "No," he said, setting down his glass with deliberate precision. "You explained why you left. You haven't explained why you never came back." Her heart twisted. "And what would have happened if I had? You had already thrown me away, Nathaniel." His expression tightened, but he didn't deny it. She exhaled sharply, shifting tactics. "If we're going to work together, we need to set ground rules." Nathaniel lifted a brow. "Rules?" "Yes. First, this is strictly professional. No personal discussions beyond what's necessary for Leo." Something flickered in his eyes, amusement or challenge, she wasn't sure. "And second?" "I won't be manipulated," she said firmly. "I know how you operate, Nathaniel. If you try to control me or make this impossible, I'll walk." Nathaniel studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Fine, but I have conditions of my own." She crossed her arms. "Of course you do." His gaze was unwavering. "Leo, I want to know him." Her stomach clenched. This was what she had feared the most. "Nathaniel, I'm not asking for full custody," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But I want time with him." Olivia hesitated. Leo had grown up never questioning why he didn't have a father. Introducing Nathaniel into his life was not something she could take lightly. She lifted her chin. "We'll start slow." Nathaniel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Agreed." She exhaled, feeling the weight of the moment. "Then we have a deal." Nathaniel smirked, his eyes gleaming with something unreadable. "Oh, Olivia, you should know by now. We've never just been business." Olivia's heels clicked against the marble floors of Kingston Global as she strode toward the elevator. The weight of her conversation with Nathaniel still lingered like an echo she couldn't shake. She had agreed to start slow, but what did that even mean? Leo was her world, her only constant. She wasn't ready to let Nathaniel into that world without proof that he wouldn't shatter it like he had before. As the elevator doors slid shut, she took a steadying breath. She had faced powerful CEOs before. She had negotiated million-dollar deals. She would not let one man and his past sins unnerve her. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Glancing down, she saw a message from Meredith Clark. "Meredith, how did it go? Did he self-destruct, or are we still on schedule?" Olivia sighed. Meredith was one of the few people who knew the full story, how Nathaniel had destroyed her life, and how she had spent years rebuilding it from nothing. She quickly typed back, "Olivia, he wants time with Leo." The response was instant. "Meredith, and you?" Olivia hesitated. "And me?" What did she want? Before she could answer, the elevator chimed and the doors opened to the executive parking lot. She stepped out, her resolve solidifying. It didn't matter what she wanted, only what Leo needed. Nathaniel sat in his office, the tension in his shoulders refusing to ease. The whiskey sat untouched beside him, his mind too tangled in thoughts of Olivia to bother drinking it. She had a son, his son, and she had kept that from him for 8 years. He wasn't sure whether to be furious or wrecked by the knowledge. He exhaled sharply, reaching for his desk phone. "Get me everything on Olivia Carter," he ordered his assistant. If he was going to be a father to Leo, he needed to know everything. Olivia arrived home late that evening, stepping into her apartment to find Leo curled up on the couch, deeply immersed in a book about the solar system. He barely looked up as she set her purse down and sat beside him. "Hey, bud," she said softly, brushing a hand through his dark curls. "Hey, Mom," he mumbled, flipping a page. She hesitated, then asked, "How was your day?" He shrugged. "Same as always. School was okay. Aunt Meredith picked me up." Olivia smiled. Did you guys get ice cream? He nodded, his little face lighting up. Chocolate, like always. A beat of silence stretched between them before she said, Leo, there's something we need to talk about. He finally looked up, his bright blue eyes curious. What is it? She swallowed, trying to find the right words. How did you tell a child that the father he had never known was suddenly back in their lives? There's someone who might want to meet you, she said carefully. Someone important. Leo blinked. Who? She took a deep breath. Your father. His little brow furrowed. I thought I didn't have one. Olivia felt her heart tighten. She had never lied to him, just never elaborated. You do. You just haven't met him yet. Leo considered this for a moment, then tilted his head. Why now? She forced a small smile. Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and now he wants to fix them. Leo was silent for a long moment before he asked, Do you like him? The question caught her off guard. It's complicated. Leo nodded solemnly, then went back to his book. Okay. And that was it. Olivia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, but deep down she knew the hardest part was still ahead. Nathaniel stood in his penthouse later that night, gazing out over the New York skyline, the city lights reflecting in the glass. He wasn't a sentimental man. He had built his empire with ruthless precision, ensuring no weakness could be exploited. But Olivia Carter had always been his weakness. And now she had given him another one. Leo. He wasn't sure if Olivia would ever forgive him for the past. But one thing was certain. He wasn't going to walk away this time. Not from his son. The next morning, Olivia woke to the sound of Leo humming as he poured cereal into his bowl. The domestic normalcy of the moment steadied her, if only for a few seconds. Today was going to be different. Today, Leo was going to meet his father. She leaned against the kitchen counter, watching him. Are you ready for today? Leo barely looked up from his spoon. For what? She swallowed the lump in her throat. For meeting Nathaniel. Leo chewed slowly, then shrugged. I guess. His nonchalance both reassured and unnerved her. He had no expectations, no history, no scars from Nathaniel to hold against him. That was both a blessing and a danger. I know this is a lot, sweetheart, she said gently. But if you ever feel uncomfortable, we can leave. Leo nodded, his small fingers tracing the edge of his bowl. It's weird. Meeting someone who's supposed to be important but isn't yet. Olivia's chest tightened. Yeah, it is. Nathaniel arrived at the Central Park boathouse an hour early, a restless energy buzzing beneath his composed exterior. He wasn't a man prone to nerves, but today was different. Today he was meeting his son. He had spent the entire night preparing for this. He had thought through every possible way this meeting could go. Leo could hate him, could refuse to talk, could ask questions he wasn't ready to answer. He had conquered boardrooms and global markets, yet here he was, completely undone by the thought of a 7-year-old boy. The moment he spotted Olivia approaching, his breath caught. She looked effortless, wearing a simple cream sweater and dark jeans, but her posture was guarded, protective. Beside her, holding her hand, was Leo. Nathaniel's first real look at his son sent a shock through him. The boy was small but sturdy, with dark curls that framed his face. And his eyes, Nathaniel's own piercing blue. For the first time in years, Nathaniel was at a loss for words. Olivia reached him first, her voice even but cool. Nathaniel. He forced himself to find his voice. Olivia. Then his gaze flickered down. And you must be Leo. Leo studied him, tilting his head slightly, assessing, calculating. Are you rich? The boy asked. Nathaniel blinked, caught off guard. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled. Yes, I suppose I am. Leo nodded as if this was acceptable. Do you have a spaceship? Nathaniel smirked. Not yet, but I've invested in companies that build them. That seemed to intrigue Leo, who crossed his arms. That's kinda cool. Olivia shot her son a look. Leo. What? Leo shrugged. It is. Nathaniel felt something inside him ease. His son didn't look at him with anger or resentment, just curiosity. It was more than he had hoped for. They settled at a quiet table near the water, the tension between Olivia and Nathaniel palpable. Leo, however, remained oblivious, happily munching on a chocolate muffin. Nathaniel cleared his throat. So, Leo, tell me about yourself. Leo wiped a crumb from his cheek. I like space. Nathaniel nodded. I hear you're an expert. Leo brightened. Yeah, I'm reading about the Artemis missions. Did you know they're planning to build a permanent station on the moon? Nathaniel leaned in. I did. And I actually know a few people involved in that project. Leo's eyes widened. For real? Olivia watched, the familiarity of the moment unnerving her. This was how it had been in the beginning. Nathaniel engaging, magnetic, impossible to resist. Leo's enthusiasm built as he and Nathaniel continued discussing rockets, black holes, and the future of space travel. For the first time in years, Olivia saw Nathaniel not as the man who had shattered her, but as something else entirely, a father. It terrified her. After an hour, Leo excused himself to go watch the ducks, leaving Olivia and Nathaniel alone. I wasn't expecting that, Nathaniel admitted, watching his son from a distance. Olivia folded her arms. Expecting what? He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. To actually connect with him. She studied him. You thought he'd hate you? Nathaniel's jaw tightened. I thought he wouldn't care. Something in his voice softened her. She didn't want to feel anything for him, not sympathy, not understanding, but the weight of the past wasn't so easily ignored. This doesn't change anything, she said quietly. We take this at Leo's pace. Nathaniel met her gaze. Agreed. She exhaled, tension still coiled tight in her chest. She had let Nathaniel in once, and he had destroyed her. She wouldn't make that mistake again. But as she watched Leo laugh with his father, she couldn't shake the sinking feeling that some doors, once opened, were impossible to close. For the next few days, Olivia tried to go about her life as if nothing had changed. But things had changed, profoundly. Leo had met Nathaniel, and worse, he had liked him. Every time she glanced at her son, she could see the gears turning in his young mind. He was fascinated by his father, eager for more time, more answers, and she didn't know how to handle that. You're thinking too hard, Meredith commented as she poured a glass of wine in Olivia's apartment. Olivia sighed, rubbing her temple. I can't help it. He asked if Nathaniel could come to his science fair next month. Meredith raised an eyebrow. And I don't know what to say. I promised Leo we'd take this at his pace, but Nathaniel isn't temporary. If I let him in, he stays. Meredith swirled her wine. Is that a bad thing? Olivia hesitated. I don't know yet. Nathaniel had never had a problem making people do what he wanted, until now. Convincing Olivia to truly let him into Leo's life was going to be his hardest deal yet. Still, progress had been made. Leo had warmed up to him. And now, for the first time since their disastrous divorce, Olivia had agreed to meet him outside of work, on neutral ground. He arrived at the small cafe in Soho first, taking the corner seat so he could watch Olivia's entrance. She stepped in a few minutes later, exuding confidence, her tailored coat cinched at the waist. She was the same Olivia he had once loved, but also someone entirely different. She sat down without preamble. Leo wants to see you again. Nathaniel hid his reaction behind a sip of coffee. "That's good news." "It is," she admitted, lacing her fingers together. "But I need to set boundaries." Nathaniel leaned forward. "Go on." She inhaled deeply. "Leo is still a child. He's impressionable. I won't have you spoiling him with wealth, trying to buy his affection." His jaw tightened. "I'm not trying to buy anything, Olivia." She held his gaze. "Then prove it." A challenge, one he was more than willing to accept. That weekend, Nathaniel took Leo to the planetarium, dressed in casual jeans and a sweater that made him look more human, less like the polished CEO of Kingston Global. Leo was in his element, rattling off facts about the solar system, excitedly pulling Nathaniel toward different exhibits. Olivia watched from the sidelines, arms crossed, trying to ignore the warmth creeping into her chest at the sight of them together. Nathaniel had made an effort. He wasn't flashing his wealth. He was present, engaged. She didn't know what to do with that. When the visit ended, Leo hugged Nathaniel, the first real sign of trust, and Olivia felt the walls she had carefully built beginning to crack. Nathaniel had expected Olivia to fight him every step of the way, to keep him at arm's length with every fiber of her being. And she had tried. But what she hadn't anticipated, what neither of them had, was Leo's growing attachment. The planetarium visit had been a success, and now Leo asked about his father constantly. It was never direct, but Olivia noticed the shift, the way he casually mentioned Nathaniel in conversation, the way he asked if Nathaniel liked the same books he did or if he was really that rich. It was happening. Leo was accepting his father's presence, and Olivia wasn't sure how she felt about that. Nathaniel wasn't naive. He knew Olivia was still watching him closely, evaluating his every move. But he was patient, willing to play the long game. One evening, after a business dinner, he found himself stopping outside Olivia's apartment building. He had no real reason to be there, only the knowledge that Olivia and Leo were upstairs, living a life he had been excluded from for 8 years. His phone buzzed. "Leo, can I tell you something cool?" Nathaniel smiled, responding immediately. "Always." Seconds later, a photo came through. Leo's latest science project, an elaborate model of the solar system. Nathaniel stared at it, something warm and unfamiliar spreading in his chest. He had missed so much. Olivia found herself hesitating more than usual these days. Before, she had been certain. Nathaniel was dangerous to her heart. Letting him near Leo was a necessary evil, something she had to do for her son's sake. But then came the small things. The way Nathaniel answered every one of Leo's texts, the way he remembered details about Leo's favorite topics, the way he never overstepped, never pushed too hard. It made it harder to hate him. One evening, after putting Leo to bed, she stared at her phone for a long time before finally typing, "Olivia, thank you for being consistent with him." A moment later, a reply, "He's my son. I wouldn't be anything else." Her breath caught, and for the first time in years she wondered, had she been wrong about him? Nathaniel didn't let himself hope. He couldn't. But the fact that Olivia was beginning to trust him, even slightly, was more than he had expected at this stage. Leo wanted more time with him, and Nathaniel wanted more too. He wanted to know everything about his son. And if he was being honest with himself, he wanted to know if there was still something between him and Olivia. Because no matter how much time had passed, the way he felt about her had never changed. And it terrified him. Olivia wasn't ready to forgive Nathaniel, but for the first time, she could see glimpses of the man she had once loved, and that was almost more dangerous than anything else. Nathaniel had spent years learning to control his emotions. He had built his empire by being calculating and ruthless, never allowing sentimentality to cloud his judgment. But Olivia and Leo had fractured his carefully curated world, And now, he was losing control in a way that both exhilarated and terrified him. He wanted more time with Leo, more moments like the planetarium trip, more texts, more late-night calls where his son's excitement made him feel something he hadn't in a long time. Purpose beyond business. But Olivia was still hesitating, and hesitation meant she was still afraid of him. Olivia didn't know why she had agreed to this. A dinner, just the three of them. Maybe it was for Leo. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe deep down she wanted to test herself. Could she sit across from Nathaniel, share a meal with him, and not fall into old habits? She wasn't sure. At the restaurant, Nathaniel pulled out Leo's chair before taking his own seat across from her. It was a simple act, but it reminded her of the man he used to be, the one she had once trusted. Leo, oblivious to the tension, happily flipped through the menu. "Can I get the biggest burger they have?" Nathaniel smirked. "You can have whatever you want." Olivia shot him a look. "Don't spoil him." Nathaniel met her gaze, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "I wouldn't dream of it." She didn't believe that for a second. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Too easy. Leo kept the conversation light, filling the silences Olivia had feared would be suffocating. Nathaniel was patient, engaging, attentive in a way that didn't feel forced, and that's what unsettled her the most. She expected resistance, but instead, he was adapting, not pushing, not demanding, just being there. As they finished their meal, Leo let out a yawn, rubbing his eyes. "Can Dad take me home?" Olivia froze. The word Dad felt like a physical force between them. Nathaniel inhaled sharply, but he recovered quickly. "If your mom's okay with it." Leo turned to her expectantly. "Mom?" Her heart pounded. It was such a small thing, a car ride home, but it felt massive. Nathaniel saw the battle in her expression. "You can come too," he offered, his voice low, careful. She swallowed hard. Boundaries, rules, control. And yet she heard herself say, "Okay." The car ride was quiet. Leo had fallen asleep in the back seat, his head resting against the window. The city lights flickered through the glass, casting shadows across Nathaniel's face as he drove. It felt familiar, painfully familiar. "Say what you're thinking," he murmured, not taking his eyes off the road. Olivia shifted in her seat. "I'm thinking that you're being patient." His grip tightened on the wheel. "Would you rather I force my way in?" She exhaled. "But I'm waiting for the moment you do." Silence stretched between them. Then quietly he said, "I'm not that man anymore." She turned to him. "I want to believe that." He glanced at her, his blue eyes sharp, unreadable. "Then let me prove it." And for the first time she didn't have an immediate answer, because maybe, just maybe, he already was. Olivia had always thought she was prepared for anything. She had spent years ensuring that no one, especially Nathaniel Kingston, could ever shake her again. But the walls she had built so carefully were beginning to shift, and she wasn't sure she could stop it. After the dinner, Leo had started calling Nathaniel Dad, as though it had always been natural. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't hesitate, and that scared Olivia more than anything. Now she found herself pacing in her apartment, her thoughts spiraling. Meredith, ever the voice of reason, watched from the couch, sipping her tea. "You knew this would happen eventually," she said. "You can't keep Leo from forming his own opinions." Olivia stopped mid-step. "I know that, but this is happening too fast." Meredith raised a brow. "Or maybe you're just terrified that Nathaniel is proving you wrong." Olivia flinched. "He's not proving anything. He's just being consistent." "Which is exactly what you said he couldn't do," Meredith pointed out. "So now what?" Now what? That was the question Olivia couldn't answer. Nathaniel wasn't sure when it had happened, but somewhere between their cautious truce and their growing co-parenting dynamic, Olivia had started trusting him. Just barely, but it was there. She still challenged him, still kept her guard up, but she wasn't shutting him out completely anymore. And he could work with that. When she had agreed to let him pick up Leo for an afternoon outing alone, he had taken it as a sign that they were making progress. He arrived at her apartment building on time, his usual confidence in place, but something about this moment felt heavier than it should. Olivia met him at the door, her arms crossed. "If anything happens to him," Nathaniel smirked, "you'll kill me." "Yes, I got the memo." She didn't laugh. "I mean it, Nathaniel." His expression softened. "I know, and I won't let anything happen to him." She hesitated, then nodded. "He's excited." "I know," Nathaniel said. "So am I." For a second, something passed between them, something real, something painful, before she stepped aside and let him go. Nathaniel took Leo to a science and robotics exhibit, an event that combined everything his son loved in one place. Watching Leo's eyes light up as he tested out AI-driven gadgets and played with robotics kits made Nathaniel realize just how much he had missed. "Dad, look at this." The word hit him square in the chest, but Nathaniel kept his composure. "What are we looking at?" Leo pointed to a digital simulation of a space launch. "It's a Mars colony model. You think they'll actually build one?" Nathaniel crouched beside him. "Maybe not in our lifetime, but if they do, I bet you'll be the one leading the mission." Leo grinned. "You think so?" Nathaniel ruffled his hair. "No doubt in my mind." It was so effortless, this bond between them. And yet it was fragile. Because Leo wasn't the only one he was trying to prove something to. He was still fighting for Olivia's trust. When Nathaniel brought Leo home that evening, Olivia was already waiting at the door. Her eyes scanned Leo first, making sure he was safe, before landing on Nathaniel. "Did he behave?" she asked. Leo rolled his eyes. "Mom." Nathaniel smirked. "He was perfect." For once, Olivia didn't argue. As Leo ran inside, Olivia lingered at the door. She hesitated, then said, "He hasn't stopped smiling since he left." Nathaniel tilted his head. "Is that approval I hear?" She sighed. "It's acknowledgement." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I don't need you to say I'm a good father, Olivia. I just need you to let me be one." She held his gaze, and for the first time she didn't push him away. Maybe, just maybe, they were getting somewhere. Nathaniel had spent his entire life negotiating high-stakes deals, winning battles through sheer strategy and determination. Yet nothing in his corporate empire had ever felt as fragile as the connection he was slowly building with Leo, and more carefully, with Olivia. And just like in business, the moment you started to feel safe was usually the moment everything started to fall apart. Olivia had never been the type to ignore warning signs. She saw them everywhere, and right now her instincts were screaming at her. It started small. A strange car parked outside her apartment building too many times in 1 week. Phone calls that rang once before disconnecting, an unsettling feeling that she was being watched. At first, she chalked it up to paranoia. She had been on edge ever since Nathaniel re-entered her life. But then Meredith voiced her own concerns. "Liv, I don't like this. What if someone doesn't want you back in Nathaniel's world?" That was the question Olivia was afraid to answer. Nathaniel was in a meeting when his phone buzzed. He nearly ignored it until he saw the name on the screen. Olivia. That alone was enough to make him step out of the boardroom without a word. "What's wrong?" he answered immediately. There was a pause. Then Olivia's voice, quieter than usual. "Nathaniel, has anyone from your company been looking into me?" His stomach tightened. "Not that I'm aware of. Why?" She hesitated. I think I'm being followed. Everything inside him went still. Where are you now? At home. Stay there, he ordered, already moving toward his office. I'm coming. Nathaniel arrived at Olivia's apartment within 20 minutes, his car barely rolling to a stop before he was out and at her door. Olivia's arms were crossed, her expression unreadable. I didn't call you here to... He cut her off. Tell me everything. She sighed but relented. There's been a car outside all week. Dark-tinted windows. It's always parked across the street, always idling when I leave or come home. And today, when I went to pick up Leo from school, I swear someone was watching me. Nathaniel's expression darkened. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, she admitted. But now I don't think I am. Nathaniel's protective instincts roared to life. I'll handle it. Olivia shook her head. Nathaniel, Olivia, he said, voice firm. Whoever this is, they're not just watching you, they're watching Leo. That hit its mark. Olivia paled slightly, her arms tightening around herself. I need to know if this is connected to Kingston Global, she said, or if it's something else. Nathaniel met her gaze. I'll find out. By the next morning, Nathaniel had every security contact he trusted looking into it, and what he found chilled him. It wasn't just one car, it wasn't just one incident. Someone was tracking Olivia's movements. Someone was interested in her return to his life. And Nathaniel Kingston did not take threats lightly. That evening he showed up at Olivia's apartment again, this time with a proposal she wouldn't like. You and Leo are moving in with me, he stated bluntly. Olivia's eyes widened. Excuse me? You're not safe here, he said. Not until I figure out who's behind this. She scoffed. And your solution is for us to move in with you? That's not happening, Nathaniel. His expression hardened. You'd rather stay here knowing someone is watching you and Leo? Her jaw clenched. We don't need your protection. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. This isn't about control, Olivia. It's about keeping our son safe. That was the moment she realized. He wasn't going to back down. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted him to. Nathaniel had always been a man of control. He dictated deals, commanded boardrooms, and orchestrated billion-dollar acquisitions without so much as a flinch. But standing in Olivia's apartment, watching her war with herself over the decision he had just placed in front of her, he realized control meant nothing when the stakes were personal. And Olivia Carter? She had always been the one thing he couldn't control. She paced, her arms crossed tightly, her jaw set in a way that told him she was barely restraining herself from lashing out. You think you can just march in here and dictate how I live my life? If it means keeping you safe, then yes, he countered, voice calm but firm. She exhaled sharply, turning to face him. This isn't just about me, this is about Leo. That's exactly why I'm doing this, Nathaniel said, stepping closer, his tone lowering. You don't have to trust me, Olivia, but you damn well know I would never let anything happen to our son. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. That was the crack he had been waiting for. After another tense silence, Olivia finally spoke. 1 week, that's all, until we figure out what's going on. Nathaniel should have felt victorious. Instead, the sight of her shoulders stiff with resistance, her eyes wary and distant, made it clear. This wasn't a win. It was survival, and that wasn't good enough. Moving them into his penthouse happened in a blur. Leo was ecstatic. He barely questioned the sudden change, excited by the idea of living in a skyscraper. Olivia, however, was on edge from the moment they stepped inside. Nathaniel had made sure to clear a wing of his home for them, separate from his own space, giving Olivia room to breathe. But even with all that space, the air between them felt thick, charged, like the past had been waiting for its moment to strike. That moment came sooner than he expected. Later that night, after Leo had fallen asleep in his new room, Nathaniel found Olivia standing in the dimly lit living room, staring out at the glittering skyline. "Are you going to hover all night?" she asked, not turning. "I wasn't hovering." "You're standing right there, aren't you?" Nathaniel sighed, stepping forward. "Are you really going to fight me at every turn?" She finally faced him, and the raw emotion in her eyes nearly leveled him. "I don't know how to be around you," she admitted. "I don't know how to exist in this space without feeling like I'm drowning in what we used to be." Nathaniel felt something sharp pierce through his chest at that. "What we used to be," he repeated. She swallowed hard. "I spent 8 years hating you, Nathaniel, and now you're standing here acting like we can just coexist?" "I'm not acting like anything," he said quietly. "I'm trying." Olivia let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Trying? You should have tried 8 years ago when I begged you to believe me." He stepped closer, his voice almost a whisper. "I made a mistake." She looked up at him then, searching his face. Something in her expression shifted. "It wasn't just a mistake," she murmured. "It was a choice." And that, more than anything, was what still haunted her. Nathaniel knew there was no defense for what he had done, no excuse that would erase what she had suffered because of him. But there was one thing he could offer now: the truth. "I didn't trust you," he admitted, the words heavy on his tongue. "And that will haunt me for the rest of my life." Olivia's breath hitched, and for the first time he saw the cracks in her armor. But instead of breaking apart, she turned away, her voice barely audible. "I can't do this right now." He let her go. For now. The next morning, Olivia woke to the sound of laughter, Leo's laughter. For a brief, beautiful moment, she forgot. Forgot where she was, forgot the tension, forgot the fact that the man who had shattered her life was just down the hall. She stepped out of her room to find Nathaniel and Leo sitting at the kitchen counter, eating breakfast together like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her heart clenched painfully. Leo had never had this. He had never had a father sitting across from him, showing him how to balance a spoon on his nose, laughing when he failed. And that was what scared her the most. Because Nathaniel had the power to break not just her heart again, but their son's. "Mom, look!" Leo beamed, finally noticing her. "Nate's teaching me how to make pancakes." Nathaniel looked up, something warm flickering in his eyes as they met hers. "I hope you don't mind," he said. "He woke up early and I thought—" "It's fine," Olivia cut in, forcing herself to sound indifferent. It wasn't fine. None of this was fine. Leo was already falling for his father, and she was powerless to stop it. By midday, Nathaniel had his private investigator send him a report. The information was disturbing. The car following Olivia had been rented under a fake name. Her phone had been cloned, meaning someone had access to her calls and messages. Elliot Brooks, Nathaniel's own acquisitions head, had been seen in a closed-door meeting with Malcolm 3 days ago. Nathaniel clenched his jaw, his hand tightening around his phone. This wasn't random. Someone didn't just want Olivia gone. They wanted her silenced. And that meant one thing. Whatever happened 8 years ago wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That evening, when Olivia walked into the penthouse after picking up Leo from school, Nathaniel was already waiting. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice low. Olivia set down her bag cautiously. "What is it?" Nathaniel exhaled. "Whoever has been watching you, they're not just after information. They want you gone." She froze. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean," he said, staring at her with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine, "whoever framed you 8 years ago, They're still covering their tracks. Olivia's blood ran cold, because that meant the real story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Nathaniel had faced corporate betrayals, hostile takeovers, and scandals that could ruin entire empires. He had spent his life controlling narratives before they could control him. But this was war. And Olivia had been caught in the crossfire for far too long. Olivia's fingers clenched around the back of a chair as Nathaniel's words settled in her chest like cold iron. Whoever framed her wasn't done. Her pulse pounded. You think this is still about what happened 8 years ago? I don't think, Nathaniel corrected, his jaw tight. I know. He turned his phone screen toward her, showing security footage of Elliot Brooks meeting Malcolm Kingston in secret. She sucked in a breath. Malcolm. Nathaniel nodded grimly. I should have known. Her heart thundered in her chest. She had spent years believing that Nathaniel was the only enemy. But now she saw the bigger picture. And it was far worse than she had imagined. Think about it, Nathaniel said, voice low and lethal. Malcolm was the one who presented me with the evidence against you. He made sure I saw those fake financial transfers. He told me to cut you off before you could escape. Olivia felt sick. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair. But it wasn't just about you, was it? It was Preston, too. Her stomach dropped. Preston Reed, Nathaniel's best friend, the man who had tried to warn her before his sudden and conveniently timed suicide. Malcolm killed him, she whispered. Nathaniel's expression was like steel. Or had him killed. Silence thickened between them, charged with 8 years of misplaced blame. 8 years of Olivia suffering for a crime she never committed. And Nathaniel had been the one to believe the lie. He swallowed hard. I should have. Don't, she cut in, voice sharp. You should have. But you didn't. And because of that, I lost everything. His hands fisted at his sides. I know. The admission nearly shattered her. But there was no time for breaking. Not when their son was still tangled in the aftermath of all this. Not when their lives were still in danger. Nathaniel took a slow breath, then said the last thing Olivia expected. I need you to help me bring him down. Her head snapped up. Excuse me? His eyes locked onto hers. You're the only person Malcolm wouldn't see coming. He thinks you're just a casualty of the past, an inconvenience he already handled. Olivia let out a bitter laugh. Right, because nothing says handled like threatening me in the present. Nathaniel didn't smile. That's why we have the advantage. He underestimates you. Her pulse pounded. For 8 years, she had wanted justice. She had wanted the truth to come out, to prove that she had never betrayed Nathaniel. And now the opportunity was sitting right in front of her. But there's a risk, Nathaniel warned. Malcolm won't go down quietly. She already knew that. She also knew something else. She wasn't running anymore. She wouldn't let Leo grow up in the shadow of this lie. So Olivia did something she never thought she would do. She nodded. I'm in. Before Nathaniel could say anything else, Leo rushed into the room, oblivious to the gravity of their conversation. Mom, Nate! He grinned. You won't believe this. I just found a telescope in the study. Can I use it? Olivia blinked, shaken by the sudden shift in reality. Nathaniel's lips twitched despite the tension in the air. It's yours, kid. Leo beamed before darting back down the hallway. The second he was gone, Olivia turned back to Nathaniel, her voice a whisper. We do this carefully. No risks. Leo never gets caught in the middle of this. Nathaniel's expression hardened. Agreed. But neither of them knew. Leo already was. That night, as Nathaniel combed through old financial records, searching for the missing pieces, Olivia lay awake in her room, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced, every memory of the past 8 years colliding with the present. Nathaniel had betrayed her. But now? Now he was the only one who could help her uncover the truth. A knock at the door jolted her out of her thoughts. She sat up, heart pounding. "Yes?" Nathaniel stepped inside. "There's something you need to see." He handed her a file. She frowned, flipping it open, and felt the blood drain from her face. A list of offshore accounts, huge transactions. The same accounts Nathaniel had accused her of transferring money into 8 years ago. And at the bottom, a signature, Elliot Brooks, her false accuser, a man Malcolm had protected. Olivia's grip on the pages tightened. "You have proof." Nathaniel nodded. "We just need the final nail in the coffin." And that meant one thing. They had to confront Malcolm. By the next morning, Olivia and Nathaniel sat across from each other at the breakfast table, Leo chattering about his telescope discoveries between them. But the tension between the adults was undeniable. Because tonight, they were going to walk into the lion's den. They were going to face Malcolm Kingston. And one way or another, the truth was finally going to come out. Nathaniel had faced boardrooms full of men who would rather see him ruined than let him win. He had fought lawsuits, hostile takeovers, and power struggles within Kingston Global that could have ended his empire. But none of it compared to this. Because this wasn't about business. This was about justice, and Olivia, and Leo, and the truth that had nearly destroyed them all. Nathaniel and Olivia arrived at the Kingston Global Executive Suite just after sunset. The building was emptier than usual, the usual swarm of employees reduced to only the essential night staff. But Malcolm Kingston was there, waiting. Nathaniel led the way, but Olivia wasn't far behind. Her heels clicked against the marble floors with purpose, her posture radiating nothing but calculated strength. She was no longer the young woman Malcolm had underestimated. She was fire and steel. And tonight, he would finally answer for his sins. The moment they stepped into his office, Malcolm looked up calmly, as if he had been expecting them. "I was wondering when you'd come." His voice was the same, cold, amused, arrogant, the voice of a man who believed himself untouchable. Nathaniel didn't waste time. He tossed the file onto Malcolm's desk. "Explain that." Malcolm sighed, flipping it open as if bored. Then he smirked. "Ah, I see. You finally figured it out." Olivia's fists clenched. "You set me up." Malcolm didn't deny it. "I did," he admitted, "and I'd do it again." Nathaniel's rage wasn't instant. It was slow, controlled, deadly. "You framed her," he said, voice like a quiet storm. "You made me believe she betrayed me." Malcolm leaned back, unbothered. "You needed a reason to let her go." Olivia's breath hitched. "Excuse me?" Malcolm gave her a condescending look. Nathaniel was too emotionally involved, too attached. "And you?" He chuckled. "You were an inconvenience, an outsider, a risk." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "So you manufactured proof." Malcolm smiled. "And you fell for it." Olivia felt sick, not just because Malcolm had orchestrated it all, but because Nathaniel had been so willing to believe it. "You murdered Preston," Olivia whispered, voice shaking. Malcolm didn't even blink. "I removed a problem," he corrected. Nathaniel's fists clenched at his sides. "You killed my best friend." Malcolm shrugged. "I protected Kingston Global." Silence stretched between them. Then Nathaniel took a step forward, dangerous. "You won't walk away from this." Malcolm laughed. "And who's going to stop me? You? Olivia?" Nathaniel's lips curled. "No." He pulled out his phone, turned the screen toward Malcolm. Live video feed. Malcolm's own confession, captured on camera. His expression finally shifted. Panic, realization, defeat. "You son of a—" But before Malcolm could finish his curse, the office doors burst open, security, lawyers, and the police. Malcolm fought, denied, tried to spin the narrative, but the evidence was airtight. Nathaniel watched, silent, as the man he had once considered family was dragged away in handcuffs. But Olivia? She felt nothing but cold, empty relief. It was over. 8 years of pain, of betrayal, of exile, over. But as Malcolm disappeared, she realized something terrifying. The past was over. But the future, that was still unknown. Nathaniel and Olivia walked out of Kingston Global together. For the first time in years, the city didn't feel suffocating. They stopped outside, the night air cool against their skin. Nathaniel turned to her, eyes unreadable. "It's done," he said. She nodded. "Yeah." Silence. Then, "Come home," he said quietly. Olivia's heart stopped. She looked up at him, struggling to breathe. "What?" He stepped closer. "You and Leo. Stay." She swallowed hard. "Nathaniel, I don't mean just for safety," he admitted, voice raw. "I mean for good." Her eyes burned. "I can't." His expression didn't change, but his hands clenched. "Why?" She took a shaky breath. "Because I don't know if I can forgive you." He closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. Then he nodded. Accepted it. For now. "I understand," he said softly, and that hurt more than anger ever could. That night, Olivia sat on the balcony of her temporary penthouse room, staring at the skyline. Leo was asleep. Nathaniel was somewhere inside, giving her space. But Olivia, she was lost. Because for 8 years, she had wanted revenge, and she had gotten it. But instead of feeling victorious, she just felt empty. Then a voice. "I know you don't trust me." She turned. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, watching her, waiting. She didn't speak. So he continued. "I know I don't deserve another chance," he admitted, "but I'm going to fight for one anyway." Her breath hitched. "Nathaniel, I love you, Olivia," he said softly. "I never stopped." A tear slipped down her cheek. And for the first time in 8 years, she didn't stop it. For the first time in 8 years, Olivia Carter was free. Free from the lies that had destroyed her life. Free from the weight of betrayal. Free to choose her own path. And yet, as she sat in the quiet of Nathaniel's penthouse, watching Leo sleep peacefully in the next room, she realized freedom didn't come without choices. Nathaniel had laid everything at her feet. Not in the way he used to, with arrogance and expectation, but with something far more dangerous. Hope. And that terrified her more than anything. The next morning, Olivia found herself in the kitchen, staring at a steaming cup of coffee she didn't remember making. Nathaniel entered quietly, dressed in a crisp button-down and slacks. But there was something different about him. He looked hesitant, uncertain. Not the controlled, powerful CEO who once dictated the course of her life. Just a man, a father, and maybe something more. "You didn't sleep," he said. She lifted the cup to her lips. "Neither did you." He exhaled, leaning against the counter. "I didn't want to push you last night. I meant what I said, Olivia. You don't owe me anything." Her fingers tightened around the mug. But before she could respond, Leo's voice interrupted them. "Mom, Nate, can we go to the park today?" Olivia turned, watching as their son bounded into the kitchen, his hair a mess, his eyes full of excitement. Nathaniel smiled. Not the kind of polite, practiced smile he used in public, but one that was soft and real. "Yeah, kid," he said. "We can go to the park." Leo whooped, already running off to get ready. And in that moment, Olivia knew. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about their son. about the family they never had the chance to be. And maybe a second chance she wasn't ready to throw away. Later that day, as they sat on a bench watching Leo race boats in the pond, Olivia finally spoke the words that had been sitting on the edge of her heart. "What happens if I say no?" Nathaniel turned to her, brow furrowing. "What?" She kept her gaze on the water. "If I say no. If I choose to take Leo back to Chicago and walk away." Silence. Then, "I'd let you go." Her breath caught. She turned to look at him, and there was no manipulation in his expression. No expectation. Only truth. "I'd let you go," he repeated, softer this time, "because I won't make the same mistake twice. If you choose to leave, I won't fight you. But Olivia..." He swallowed, eyes dark with emotion. "I'd wait for you, for as long as it takes." And just like that, everything changed. Because for 8 years, Nathaniel had been the one who held all the power, the one who took everything from her. And now he was the one waiting for her, her choice, her terms. And that was love. Real, unbreakable, earned. That night, Olivia stood on the penthouse balcony, looking out at the New York skyline. Nathaniel had given her a key to the past, but he had also given her something far more valuable, a door to the future. And for the first time, she wanted to walk through it. The decision came quietly, not with grand gestures or fiery declarations, just certainty. She turned, walking back inside, and found Nathaniel waiting. She didn't say anything at first, just stepped into his space, so close she could feel his breath against her skin. His hands hovered at his sides, as if afraid to touch her. So she made the choice for him. She reached up, cupping his face. Nathaniel sucked in a breath, his eyes darkening. "Olivia..." She kissed him, not with anger, not with pain, but with everything else, with forgiveness, with longing, with love that had never really disappeared. And when he kissed her back, slow, deep, reverent, she knew. This was her home, not the penthouse, not the wealth, him, them. And finally, after 8 long years, she was exactly where she was meant to be. 1 year later. Leo stood between Olivia and Nathaniel, grinning up at them as they walked toward his new school. "I bet I'll make 1,000,000 friends," he announced. Olivia smiled, brushing his hair back. "You already have me and Nate." Leo rolled his eyes. "Yeah, but you guys are old." Nathaniel chuckled. As they reached the gate, Leo turned suddenly, looking at Nathaniel. "Hey, Dad?" Nathaniel froze. It was the first time Leo had called him that without hesitation, without question. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, kid," Leo grinned. "Don't get lost without me today." Then he ran off, disappearing into the sea of children. Olivia reached for Nathaniel's hand, and this time, he didn't let go.